to get your feedback about a lot of different things that have happened within this last year and almost a month here of Trump's second term in office. And a lot to talk about, a lot to unpack in this wellness check edition of the Thinking Out Loud radio show. Hello and welcome to a brand new edition of the Thinking Out Loud radio show. And I'm your host, Michael Nimitz. We're so happy that you tuned in to this week's, we're calling it the Wellness Check edition of the Thinking Out Loud radio show. Very excited that you've taken time out of your day to spend a few minutes with us. And we're going to be talking about politics in this week's edition, talking about what's happening in the Trump administration. We're getting a wellness check. We're doing it, guys. We want to get a temperature check of the political climate that's happening right here in this country. We want to get your feedback about a lot of different things that have happened within this last year and almost a month here of Trump's second term in office. And a lot to talk about, a lot to unpack in this wellness check edition of the Thinking Out Loud radio show. I think it's time, guys, for us to talk about it. Consider this our community service, because that is what our platform has always been about, really giving you an opportunity to give your feedback, to interact with us and to share your thoughts and even hear from us about what we think when it comes to a number of different topics, including politics, which is one thing that we've talked about quite a bit on this podcast. And as we said, this is a wellness check. We want to find out where you are today, what the temperature is of the listeners of this podcast. Are you behind in supporting Donald Trump, or are you like me? You don't know where this man is coming from. I feel like, and I believe that many of you are standing with us and believe that he doesn't know what he is doing. And it is a shame that this man is the commander in chief. I just can't fathom that we're at this point in our nation's history. Before we get too far into this episode, I want to direct your attention to our YouTube channel. Those of you who might be even watching this particular video on our YouTube channel, do us a favor, guys, hit that subscribe button. We are close to 1,000 subscribers. We're doing our business right here on our YouTube channel. We've just posted a few videos from some recent podcast interviews, most recently with Miss Michigan Des Durden. We uploaded a video from her interview. Also from award-winning filmmaker Anthony Green. We uploaded a video clip from our recent interview with him on our YouTube channel, and a few others as well. So guys, you got to stop by our YouTube channel. We're getting our views up. There are over 1,000 for each video. So help us out. Hit that subscribe button, like and comment on this video. We're going to be posting on our YouTube channel as well. We want to get your feedback. We want to know what your thoughts are about this wellness check video that we will be posting very soon. Drop your comments below, and we're going to do our very best to respond to each and every one of them, because we like to know what you're thinking about, what your thoughts are. Of course, we're calling the Thinking Out Loud radio show, and we invite you to think out loud with us. All right. That being said, guys, we're going to jump right into the topic for today, our wellness check, and really talking about what has been happening over this past year, most recently with the ICE incidents that have been taking place in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and in other states and cities within our own country. It is just tragic when you talk about the number of lives, 8 lives so far, that have been lost because of this aggressive policing approach that the Trump administration has implemented. The Department of Homeland Security is responsible for the deaths of these American citizens. And it's just sad that we have to even talk about these individuals in this way. I want to direct your attention to an article really quickly here that really shines a light on what has been happening since the beginning of this year. there is an article that is from The Guardian. According to this article in The Guardian, 8 people have died in dealings with ICE so far in 2026. And we want to say their names, these individuals whose lives were taken just days into this brand new year by these aggressive ICE agents. Luis Gustavo Nunez Cacares on the 5th of January, a 42-year-old immigrant from Honduras died in ICE custody at Houston Healthcare in Conroe, Texas. Geraldo Lunez Campos on January the 3rd, while in ICE custody, a Cuban immigrant died of homicide. Victor Manuel Diaz, a 36-year-old and Nicaraguan immigrant, Victor Manuel Diaz, died at Camp East Montana in El Paso, Texas on the 14th of January. Parody La, a Pennsylvania man, died while in ICE custody at the Thomas Jefferson University Hospital in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania on January the 9th. And of course, you all know Renee Nicole Good, a young woman who was gunned down by an aggressive ICE agent in Minneapolis, Minnesota, fatally shot in her car on January the 7th. This 37-year-old mother of 3 was a poet and a writer who had moved to Minneapolis from Kansas City. You all saw her video, and again, very tragic death here. Young woman's life taken far too soon. Luis Beltran Yanez Cruz. On the 6th of January, Honduran immigrant Luis Beltran Yanez Cruz died at the John F. Kennedy Memorial Hospital in Indio, California from heart-related issues, according to an ICE statement following his death. And Heber Sanchez Dominguez, a 34-year-old from Mexico, died at the Robert A. Dighton Detention Center in Lovejoy, Georgia on the 14th of January. And last, certainly but not least, is Alex Preddy, an intensive care unit nurse for Veterans Affairs Hospital, was again tragically and fatally shot by federal agents during an anti-ICE protest in Minneapolis, Minnesota on the 24th of January. You all seen his video. And again, these lives were taken far too soon. And it's so sad that we have to talk about them just days into this brand new year. And it's all because of the aggressive policing approach taken up by the Department of Homeland Security under the advisement of the Trump administration. It is just sad that this is happening, and something has to be done. It really does. Something has to be done about this. And again, we just wanted to start right here talking about these ICE murders. It is beyond a reproach here. And what's even worse is to see these Trump officials try to justify these deaths and to try to make it appear as if these individuals were, the aggressive approach was somehow warranted by these ICE agents. Listening to Secretary Noem talk about this, and then showing another video of Alex Preddy in earlier protests, again, in a way, in my view, trying to somehow justify his untimely death because of his involvement in earlier protests. It's in such poor taste. There just doesn't seem to be any sensitivity at all in this administration. No care or concern for humanity, and something has to be done. It really does. And we want to talk about it. We want to know what your thoughts are about this as well. What is happening in this country is sad. It is diabolical. And it's time for us to really speak up and speak truth to power. And that's what we're going to do in this week's edition of the Thinking Out Loud radio show. That's what we're offering our platform to you, to voice your opinions and to offer your feedback about what is happening right here in this country. As we continue talking about what has been happening in this year and a month into the second term of the Trump administration, we have an update regarding the government shutdown that we are as a nation on the cusp of yet another government shutdown, believe it or not. According to this article on CNN, it is Trump's deal with Senate leaders to avert government shutdown hit snags as lawmakers refuse to allow a quick vote. When we dive into this article here, it says Senate leaders have a bipartisan funding deal in hand, but it remains to be seen whether they will avert a costly government shutdown as the clock ticks down towards Friday's midnight deadline. Lawmakers left Capitol Hill late Thursday after all rank and file senators could not come to agreement to swiftly move the spending package, the contours of which negotiations from both parties and the White House struck earlier in the day. Senators are set to return Friday with an eye towards sending the bills back to the House for final approval, but negotiations can change rapidly. I hope we can get these issues resolved right now, according to Senate Majority Leader John Thune. He says, and any one senator can object to quick consideration of a measure on the floor, slowing down the process. But I want to show you really quickly here. There's another article in the USA Today that talks about the shutdown and the reasons why Democrats are fighting this bill here, this resolution to keep the government open. They are, according to this article here, the chances of a partial government shutdown have been accelerated in recent days as Senate Democrats rally around efforts to reject the bill to fund the Department of Homeland Security in response to the second fatal shooting of a U.S. citizen by federal agents. Hours after a U.S. Border Patrol agent shot and killed 37-year-old Alex Preddy during a protest in Minneapolis on January the 24th, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer of New York said Democrats will not support keeping the government fully open while also funding DHS. Senate Democrats have since called on Republican senators to work with them to advance the other 5 funding bills of the total 6-bill package while they work to rewrite the DHS bill. He says here, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, the appalling murders of Renee Good and Alex Preddy on the streets of Minneapolis must lead Republicans to join Democrats in overhauling ICE and CPP to protect the public. People should be safe from abuse by their own government. People should be safe from abuse by their own government. And it is sad. It seems like we are living in some respects in a third world country. This is how when you look at the news and you see these ICE agents accosting American citizens like this, you think you're living in Beirut or Sudan or some other third world country where there is no human decency. There is no care or concern for humanity. And that just seems sad that we live in this country and this administration is allowing this to go on. Something needs to happen. Something definitely needs to be done. And this is what Senate Democrats are proposing, that they are not going to support the fully funding of the government in support while also supporting funding for the Department of Homeland Security. And this could be a resolution to these ICE murders by pulling the funding from the Department of Homeland Security, because the Secretary of Homeland Security does not seem to be listening. She is tone deaf, just like other Trump officials, including the president, tone deaf to what is happening in this country. And it is sad that we have gotten to this point, and something needs to be done, as we've said earlier, and stand in support of Senate Democrats in withholding funding from the Department of Homeland Security until they rewrite this bill so that they can bring this department into some kind of order and stop these ICE agents and the aggressive policing approach that they have implemented in cities and states around this country. something needs to happen. Something definitely needs to happen. And so as we go on and continue on talking about some of the things that's been happening in this year, we also talk about Trump renaming of historical Washington monuments. We was talk about him renaming the John F. Kennedy Center, the Trump Kennedy Center. This is just ridiculous. This man is an egotistical, maniacal narcissist, and it's unfortunate that's who we have to call the president of these United States. That is the man that is in the White House right now. That's the man that has the launch codes, the nuclear codes. This is the man that you guys have entrusted with all of this information. I just can't believe it. I cannot believe it. It boggles my mind how this man is back in the Oval Office, given how terrible of a job he did back in 2016 all the way through to 2020, and then leaving office with an insurrection in the Capitol. And you decided to give this man another opportunity back in November of 2024. Yeah, I'm talking to you, every single one of you who voted for Donald Trump. I hope you're listening to this podcast. I hope you're watching this video on our YouTube channel, because we consider you accessories to the demise of this country because of your vote that empowered this clown that we call the President of the United States. Incredible. It's incredible. I can't believe it. I cannot believe that we're having this conversation about a man who did not deserve another opportunity to do what he did to this country just a few years ago when he was president back in 2016 to 2020. And then I just saw recently where he is now, he is still talking about the 2020 election being rigged and threatening prosecution of Georgia officials. I think he sent the FBI to seize ballots and other election related documents in Georgia and Fulton County, alleging that these documents are evidence and proof that the election in 2020 had been stolen, and suggested that individuals involved are going to be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. This is incredible. This is the president of the United States. We're not talking about just anybody, but this is the man who is supposed to be leading this free world, this country that we live in. And here he is, basically no smarter than a fifth grader. Incredible. I don't know what to say. I just don't. I don't know what to say about this. This is who you guys voted for. I didn't vote for him. And his constant and blatant disregard for American citizens is ridiculous. There's an article that talks about him just recently where he was in Detroit right before the auto show, visiting an auto plant, and got into it with one of the auto workers there, and actually gave the auto worker the middle finger, and he mouthed an expletive to this auto worker who was ultimately suspended by the plant. And from what I hear, a GoFundMe page was put together for this individual, and they've raised over $800,000 for him because he's been on suspension because of his altercation with the president of the United States. And as you see here, people have gotten behind this man who had the courage to stand up to a tyrant. And now he's raised so much money. From what I understand, he had to actually tell them to stop sending him money. Can you believe that? To stop sending him money because he's raised over $800,000. And it just shows you the unrest that exists in this country. It's sad. It really is. And so we're talking about it in this wellness check edition of the Thinking Out Loud radio show. Again, as we're talking, please leave your comments in the comments below. If you're watching us on our YouTube channel, in this particular excerpt or clip or segment of the episode, please do. And we'll make sure that we respond to every comment or question that's been asked of us regarding what we're discussing in this week's Wellness Check edition of the Thinking Out Loud radio show. Another aspect of this, another aspect of this wellness check that we want to discuss regarding the Trump administration's year and a month into this second term is the King protests that took place this past summer, where thousands of people gathered in cities across the country to protest the Trump administration and their policies and things that have been done or he is doing. And when I first caught wind of it, I really didn't think much of it for a couple of reasons. And in fact, I was even getting ready to do a podcast to offer my reply to those who happen to be out there protesting this president. And I was saying to myself, yes, protesting is important, and it's embedded into our Constitution with the ability to protest and the freedom of speech, the right to call into question policies that you don't agree with, and you have that right to peacefully protest in this country. And so they were just doing that, exercising their right to protest and use their free speech during those King protests. But my thought was, what was the real objective here? What is the real purpose? Because other than just expressing your collective discontent with this president, what was really going to come of it? And then on top of that, I even thought about that the makeup or the demographic of those who are out there actually protesting, and are saying to myself, I doubt very seriously if all of those protesters for these King protests did not vote for Donald Trump. I doubt that very seriously. I believe that there is a mixture of people out there, those who didn't vote for him and those who did vote for him were also out there protesting as well. And I'm saying to myself, and if they are out there, why are they out there? They're out there because they have buyer's remorse. And if they have buyer's remorse, at what point did they realize that this man was not standing up for them? At what point did they realize that they had wasted their vote back in November of 2024? That part is what's really eating at me, especially for those who voted for Trump in 2024, but yet still had the unmitigated gall to call this president to the carpet in these No King protests back in the summer of 2024. And then to top it off, here's an article I want to show you really quickly. According to Politico, third No Kings nationwide protest planned for March of this year. That's right, guys. The group behind the nationwide No Kings protests are planning their fourth demonstration of President Donald Trump's second term and are anticipating even greater turnout than the earlier rallies. Ezra Levine, a rally organizer and the co-founder of the progressive group Indivisible, said in an interview that the planned third No Kings protest on March 28th is in response to a secret police force terrorizing American communities, referring to ICE. It is unfortunately not a surprise to us that this lawless police force is committing crimes all across the country and that people are standing up to it, said Levine. Our goal is safeguarding American democracy, protecting our communities and the people who are under threat by this regime. And it's indeed a noble cause. And we, again, support those who are protesting this administration. But if you voted for Donald Trump in November of 2024, my question to you is, what do you know now about him that you didn't know then? That right there is the $1 million question. What do you know now about him that you didn't know then? What about his character? What about his policy, his politics? What about anything related to him that you didn't know then that you now know? That somehow sullied your opinion of him. Because one thing about Donald Trump, he doesn't hide who he is. He hasn't hidden anything about himself. He's unapologetically Trump. He's right in your face. And he's been that way ever since he stepped on the scene back in 2016. And that is the part that is baffling to me as we talk about those who voted for him. There's nothing about him that he hid from any of us. He said what he was going to do, what he wanted to do, and he's doing that. And so what problem do you have with him now that you didn't have with him in November 2024, so much so that you ended up voting for him? That is, riddle me that. Drop it in the comments. Somebody help me out with that. What did you know? What do you know now that you didn't know in 2024, particularly those of you who voted for him? I would love to hear that answer. Please drop that in the comments so I can know from someone who voted for him. What do you know now about him that has sullied your opinion of him that you didn't know back in 2024? And that will help us out a whole lot. Believe me, it will shed a light or shine a light on why, you are out there. Because I think, again, that's what you all have, buyer's remorse. You thought you were getting something and it turned out you didn't get what you paid for. And you paid for it with your own vote. And so that's why you are an accessory to the demise of this country, because it was your vote that empowered this man to do what he is doing in this country right now. It's a shame. It really is. We're getting ready to take our first break of the night. But when we come back, guys, on the other side of the break, we're going to give the Trump administration a grade. That's right. We're going to give them a grade for this year and a month into his second term as president of the United States. We're going to do that on the other side of the break. All right, guys, we are back on the Wellness Check edition of the Thinking Out Loud radio show. Of course, I'm your host, Michael Nimitz, and we want to thank you for tuning in to this week's edition of the Thinking Out Loud radio show. We're just taking a temperature check of the political climate of this country. And of course, if you don't know what's going on, you must be living under a rock, because we are in a state of unrest in this country, whether you know it or not. This Trump administration is doing a tremendous disservice in how they are running this country from the top down. And we've talked about some of what's happening in the first segment here, just touching on the ICE murders of people like Alex Pretty and Renee Good and many others. One of the common denominators with a few of the 8 that were tragically slain by this aggressive policing approach from these ICE agents is they were immigrants. They were immigrants coming to this country. And again, you've heard President Trump try to justify this aggressive policing approach, saying that immigrants are really the crux of the problem regarding the criminal activities that have taken place in this country, trying to place blame on them without any evidence or proof of that whatsoever. And it's sad again that this is the kind of climate that we're living in, that people can just say things and put things out there without any evidence, without any proof to back any of it up, and yet find support and find people that stand behind them blindly. And that's what happened back in November of 2024. That is why we are where we are, because people believed the lies that this man told about immigrants and the lies that he told about African Americans and about other ethnicities. He is just a liar in chief, and he's unapologetically, and you just believed him and lined up behind him and offers your vote. And that's the reason why we are where we are. And so in this segment, we said before the break that we were going to give the Trump administration a grade as we talk about this year and a month into his second term. And it's just amazing with everything that we discussed in the first segment that has transpired, guys. For me, and I don't know about you, I can just only speak for me. I'm giving the Trump administration a big fat F. That is correct. A big fat F. And F is not for fantastic. F is not for fabulous. F is for failure. An abject failure of a job by the Trump administration. And that includes not just the president, but every single one of the officials that he's tapped to help him lead this country. It has been an abject failure of a job by every single Trump administration official, including the president of the United States. Take that for what it's worth. But that is the honest to God truth. They deserve a failure, an F, for the job that they have done. There are now people talking about possibly finding ways to impeach Donald Trump. And I'm saying to myself, how in the world can that happen when the Republicans have the majority of the House, they have the majority in the Senate, they lead the executive branch, and they have a majority in the Supreme Court? How in the world can you impeach this man? Now, the only thing that you can say to that is this, that the mess that has been made over this year and a month into this second term of the Trump administration rests solely at the feet of the Republican Party, because Democrats are not involved at all. This happened under your watch. This happened while you were in charge. So you can't blame Nancy Pelosi. You can't blame any of the other rank and file Democrats for anything that's happening in this country. You know why? Because you are in charge. It happened under your watch. It happened under your watch. And so there's nothing you can say that will change that. And you still want the power. You still want more power. You know, that the power that you have is not enough. And then the part that, the most disturbing is that not only do you want more power, but look what you're doing with the power that you have. It's doing nothing to help those that you serve, the constituents that put you in office, but it's only doing things to help solidify your well-being. The only thing doing to help yourself and to make you look good. And that is the saddest part about all of this. These men are just looking out for themselves and their own selfish self-interest. And that's why that is why something needs to happen. That's why we need to do something. And we're going to talk about that approach in the third segment of this Wellness Check edition of the Thinking Out Loud radio show. We're going to talk about it. And we've talked about it in other episodes and other shows. But even more so, we need to really focus our attention on this and do it the right way this coming November. And yes, I'm talking about voting. Yes, that's what I'm talking about. Make no mistake about it. And if nothing else, what this has proven, this experiment with this clown of a president has proven is that your vote does count. Everybody that voted for Trump, you're the reason why he's in office. So everyone that said that your vote doesn't count, the election was stolen, your vote doesn't matter, look who you put in office. So the fault lies at your feet. You're the reason why this country is in the shape that it's in. And yes, I don't blame Donald Trump for much of this. I blame every single individual who went into the voting booth and voted for this man who had 32 felony counts at the time of your voting. This man was a convicted felon. And I went on my show and said, there is no way. This is how much confidence I had in the American people. There is no way that they would vote a convicted felon into office. And boy, was I wrong. Boy, was I wrong about that, because that's exactly what you did. You voted a convicted felon president of the United States. The other 42 presidents, whatever the number is, of those that have gone on, are rolling over in their grave because you have put a convicted felon in office. And not only that, but not only did you vote for him then, but think about the alternative to Donald Trump. Think about the qualified, intelligent, experienced women that were his opponents, both in 2016 and in 2024. In 2020, experience, qualified. No, didn't want her. You chose him over her. And there was some that said at the time nobody liked or that there was still some angst about the Clintons because of how she ran her campaign when she ran against Barack Obama back in 2007 and 8 and ran her campaign. And there may have been some racist undertones early on as they were opponents running for the office of president of the United States back in 2008. But, you know, what she demonstrated when she ran and they got to the convention and she ended up giving her delegates to President Obama, putting him over the top to become the Democratic nominee for president of the United States. I thought that was a tremendous gesture at that point, and that she had won back the black folks that she offended during the campaign. And then Barack bringing her on as Secretary of State, and then her running and winning the Senate seat for the state of New York. I thought that she had gained some credibility in the black community, her and her husband, or regained that credibility in the black community. But unfortunately, it looked like that did not happen. And so you chose Donald Trump in 2016. And then now here we are in 2024, when you have a Vice President, Kamala Harris, who was a U.S. Senator before she was tapped to be the running mate for then President Joe Biden, or candidate Joe Biden for President of the United States. And before that, she was the Attorney General for the state of California. And so it's like, really, you're picking this man over all of this experience, the qualifications that these intelligent and brilliant women had over him. You picked him over them. And with everything that he had going on, especially in 2024, with 32 felony counts, you thought this man was still qualified to be the commander in chief. That is rich. That is rich. Can't believe it. I still can't believe it. I thought I was dreaming in November of 2024 when I saw that blood red map where Republicans were just leading all across the country. I said to myself, I can't believe that what I said was wrong. That I did not believe that the American citizens would vote a 32 count convicted felon into office, and you guys proved me wrong. You proved me all the way wrong. I couldn't believe it. Still can't believe it. This is where we are. This is where we are. And I am still scratching my head, obviously. And those of you who might be watching us, again, feel free to drop your thoughts in the comments. We'll make sure that we respond to each question or each comment that you make about whatever we've discussed. Again, this is the Wellness Check edition of the Thinking Out Loud radio show. I hope you guys are enjoying this. We offer this platform to you because everybody needs a therapy session. And that's what I'm calling. This is our therapy session. We've got to get this out some kind of way. And feel free again to drop your thoughts in the comments. So even if you're following us on social media, you can see those social media tags there as well. TOL Radio Host MSN on IG, the TOL Radio Show on IG, any one of those, or send us an email at contact@michaelnimitz.com. We'd be more than happy to hit you back and respond to any questions or comments you might have about the show. Guys, we're getting ready to take our last break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the path in November. What is at stake and what do we have to do to change things in November? You don't want to go anywhere. You're tuned in to the Thinking Out Loud radio. All right, guys, we are back and we're continuing in our Wellness Check edition of the Thinking Out Loud radio show. I'm your host, Michael Nimitz. And if you're watching us on YouTube, remember, leave your comments, drop your comments below. We want to hear from you as we continue talking about the Trump administration and where do we go from here. We're doing that in this segment. And we just, again, hope you are enjoying this and using this opportunity to get some clarity. This is a therapy session. We're offering this and our platform to you to get some things off of your chest if you need to. And even if you might agree with Trump, we want to hear from you as well, because you guys are still my mind is just reeling at this point, trying to understand those of you who support this man and why. So please, if you do and are supporting him, we want to hear from you. Drop your comments there as well, because this platform is for you as well. We want to know why you're supporting Donald Trump, why you feel like he is the man for the job, the man to lead this country. I want to know why you voted for him in 2024. Again, we didn't vote for him. We don't believe that he is the man for the job. As we said in the earlier segment, that his administration gets an F for failure for the job that they've done so far. And this job is not fantastic or fabulous. It is failure. Let me be clear, abundantly clear about what our feelings are about that. But again, in this segment, we want to talk about where do we go from here? Well, the midterm elections are coming up in November. Very important election cycle again. And there's an election cycle that's not important, but this is one I believe that is just as important as the 2028 election cycle, when we will be voting for another president if history says the same. And we want to share with you what our thoughts are about the midterm elections coming up. There's an article I want to draw your attention to here really quickly, and we're going to discuss this and jump into this article here. the 2026 midterm elections, what to expect in this year's election calendar. According to the United States Politics and Policy website, they're offering us some information about the 2026 midterms and again, what to expect on this year's electoral calendar. In November this year, U.S. Senate seats and all 35 U.S. Senate seats and all 435 U.S. House seats will be up for election in the 2026 midterms. From primaries to the congressional calendar, as this year begins, Peter Finn maps the political and electoral journey to November 3rd. He is the author of this particular article. We'll jump down a bit. Tuesday, November 3rd, we'll see the U.S. 2026 midterm elections with thousands of contests held for federal, state, and local offices. These election slots into a rolling cycle of U.S. elections that, for example, saw off-year gubernatorial elections in Virginia and New Jersey in November 2025. We'll see further off-year gubernatorial elections in Kentucky, Mississippi, and Louisiana in 2027, and a presidential election, of course, in 2028. I want to jump down a bit here to his discussion about the Senate, which is currently now the Republicans have a majority in. As Table 1 here shows, there will be primaries for 35 Senate elections this year. 33 of these are regularly scheduled Class 2 elections, while there will be two special elections for seats in Ohio and in Florida. In Ohio, the elections is to fill the vacancy left by Republican J.D. Vance, who is now the vice president. In Florida, meanwhile, the election to fill the seat of Republican Marco Rubio, who is now the Secretary of State. Primaries begin in March and run into September. As of early January, there are no contests scheduled for April or July. However, 15 states were yet to confirm the dates of their primaries, so this may change. And so you see here in November, there are 35 seats that are up for grabs for the U.S. Senate. And again, right now, Republicans have a majority in the Senate. And so this is a prime opportunity for Democrats to reclaim the majority in November. And you know how we do that? We go to the polls and vote. You've got to go to the polls and vote. And this election, and we've said this before, it almost sounds like a cliche when you hear it. This is the most important election in this generation. And I think this was said back in November of 2024. And I think because it was said in 2024, some people took it as nothing but a cliche and didn't go vote at all. And others did, and they voted for the wrong candidate. And so, again, as we said in the last segment, those who didn't vote and those who did vote for Trump, we're blaming you for this. But you have an opportunity to redeem yourself in November of this year, 2026. The question is, what are you going to do with that opportunity? Are you going to continue to support the Republican Party and their candidates? Or are you going to send a real message to the Republican Party that times have changed? And it's time to elect people that are going to serve the people, the constituents that put them there. It's time to elect politicians. It's time to elect congressmen and women. It's time to elect senators that are going to put the people first. And that's what's got to happen. That's what's got to happen. And now here in the House of Representatives, all 435 seats are up for grabs. And you can see that by this table here, the 2026 primaries for U.S. House of Representative elections. It shows you which seats are up for grabs. And again, unlike the Senate, there will be races in 2026 for all 435 seats of the House of Representatives, as seen in Table 2. Primaries for half of the 50 U.S. states are scheduled between March and September, with 5 in March, 6 in May, 7 in June, 4 in August, and 3 scheduled for September. As above, currently no contests are scheduled for April or July, but this may change as the remaining half of U.S. states confirm their primary dates. But again, people, it's important that you understand the gravity of what's at stake here. This is the midterm elections, and this is where Congress and the Senate get their report cards directly from the American people. And this is your opportunity to give them their grade on how well you think they have been doing or have done as sitting leaders in the House and the Senate. And if you don't think they've done a good job, then this is your opportunity to let them know unequivocally what you think of the job that they have done or haven't done. And the way you do that is you take your souls to the polls and vote. The way you let them know unequivocally that they have done a terrible job representing you is you fire them with your vote. You fire them with your vote and let them know how you feel. They may not be listening now, but I guarantee you in November, they'll be listening to you. They may not take your calls now when you try to call their office to complain about this and complain about that. But I guarantee you they'll pick up the phone in November. And if they're smart, they'll pick up the phone now, because they have to be reading the tea leaves if they're savvy and smart politicians, because they know that their day of reckoning is coming. And that at some point, the American people are going to wise up. They're going and they're going to rise up. It may not be in physical violence, but I hope that it will be in the moment that matters the most. And that's in November when it's time to vote. Because that's when your voices are the loudest. Not in the No King protests that are shouting expletives to the president, because he's not paying that any attention. He's not listening to that. In fact, if nothing else, that's emboldening him to continue in his rebellious approach to being president of the United States. But if you want to get this man's attention, vote in November in the midterms. And the Democrats take back control of the House and take back control of the Senate. And now we can talk about impeachment. I bet you get the attention of the Republican Party at that point. You want to get their attention? You vote in November and show them how you feel. That's the only way you're going to see real change in Washington, You have got to be the ones to initiate that change. That's the only way it's going to happen. That's the only way it's going to happen. I hope you're listening to us, and if you agree, drop it in the comments below. That's the only way it's going to happen. You have got to take your souls to the polls in November. And we've said this in every election cycle. But I don't understand why it doesn't seem to resonate with voters, because when you had the power to do something back in November, look at what you did with it. You flushed your vote down the toilet. And last thing I'll say about this, especially for those who didn't vote, what you don't understand when you don't vote is that you shrink your electorate. That simply means that if there are 50,000 registered voters in your municipality, for example, or there are 500,000 voters in your municipality, and only 50,000 of those voters, of those registered voters, vote during an election cycle, then you have shrunken your electorate to 50,000 registered voters. And that 50,000 registered voters are now making decisions for the whole. They are the ones that have decided who their leaders are going to be. And so those other 450,000 registered voters who did not vote, they have no recourse. They have nothing to say and in objection of any of it, because when they had the opportunity to vote, they didn't do it. When they had the opportunity to vote, they didn't vote. And that is the basis for this wellness check that we're having on today. The message that I want to convey unequivocally to everyone that's watching us and everyone that is listening to us under the sound of my voice, that what happens in this next election cycle is completely and entirely up to you. What are you going to do with this opportunity? What are you going to do? Because you know what they say, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, but yet expecting different results. And so my recommendation to you, if you want to see real change, then you've got to do some things differently. What you did last year is not going to work this year. You got to do something different. I hope you are enjoying and have enjoyed this Wellness Check edition of the Thinking Out Loud radio show. Again, we're just sharing our thoughts about the year and a month into the second term of this Trump administration. We feel like this is our public service to you, the listeners of the Thinking Out Loud radio and TV show, those of you who are listening to the podcast, and even those of you who are watching the excerpts that we've included on our YouTube channel. So we love to hear from you. Again, drop your comments below. We'll respond to each and every one of them. Guys, we're getting ready to take our last break, but when we come back, we're going to give you our thought of the week. Don't go anywhere. You're tuned in to the Thinking Out Loud radio show. We'll be right back.